instructions. One? Okay. And that was, so you can say whatever you think.
Jonathan, are we all set?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to call this unusual meeting of the Stow Board of Selectmen to order. It is March 24th, 2020, and pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, there is a quorum of the Board of Selectmen present, at least virtually, and I see that we have some audience members in attendance, so far everything seems like it is working. I want to start with Chairman's comments, but the first part of that, I want to ask our Executive Assistant Maureen Trunfio to make some procedural remarks about about the Zoom mechanism that we're using for the meeting tonight.
Thank you. As Jim said, we already have some participants on Zoom. Great. Thanks for participating. If you're watching on Stow TV and would like to interactively join the meeting, on the bottom of the green box on the left side of the website are instructions. So you can do that now. You can join at any time. But basically, you simply go to a web browser and put in zoom.us/join. Don't need to download software, any of that. What you will need is login information, and that is on the agenda section of the Selectmen's page. But for tonight, right now, the ID code is 674-192-178. And that is on this agenda and all future agendas. That's your key to get in. Some of these instructions I'm about to provide may not apply if you're using the Zoom app on your phone. Things may be a little different on your end with your phone, not so much on our end. So feel free to participate if you are using a phone. You should see a box with your image when you join the meeting. If it's possible, please rename yourself. It's pretty simple. It'll be right there to rename. If you plan to participate and make comment, best way to do it. You may be muted when you join, and if you wish to participate in the meeting, please raise your hand in front of the camera at the meeting, and I, the meeting monitor, will bring this to the chair's attention and allow you to speak. I will notify you when it's your turn to speak, and obviously you'll need to mute yourself at that point. Those are the most basic instructions, but I think that should suffice for this meeting.
Thank you, Maureen. That was great. All right, everybody, I've got some extended chairman's comments because of the public emergency that we're all experiencing. I just want to add one thing to what Maureen said. This meeting's probably going to be a little rougher than usual. I'm sure you're all going to be very considerate. Please be trying to figure out this new reality. I want to say a few things about the public health emergency that we are currently experiencing. I got some information from the Board of Health, Fire Department, and the Council on Aging. The Board of Health would like to know our public health nurses are on the front line of this situation as they monitor the state's communicable disease surveillance system, MAVEN, for our community. There are no citizens in Stow who have a laboratory-confirmed positive test for COVID-19 as of this morning. The staff of the Board of Health continues to field a wide range of questions regarding this situation, helping citizens to find the answers they need. They asked you most of your information from CDC websites and the State Department of Health website. I will read those website addresses in a moment. Daycares, as we know, are closed by order of the governor unless they received approval to remain open. Board of Health staff regularly participates in conference calls with the State Department of Health. The Neshoba Associated Boards of Health office is closed to the public, but the health agents, the public health nurses, and administrative staff are available by phone and email. I know that the public health nurse we have here in Stow has been very busy. The office will continue to perform most of their inspectional duty for our town, and they have a drop box at the front door to facilitate the exchange of paperwork. The residents are asked to use the State Department of Public Health and CDC websites for reliable, accurate information. And the website there, the CDC, is www.cdc.gov/coronavirus/2019-NCOV/index.html. And the Department of Public Health is mass.gov/COVID-19. That is from the, and also Massachusetts residents can use 211 for information resources and referrals for COVID-19. I haven't tried this myself, but apparently if you dial 211, you can get some information. And if you're going to be talking amongst yourself, maybe you could mute, maybe you could use mute. We're all kind of figuring this out. The fire department has asked me to report that, as we all know, the following locations in town have been closed, the physical buildings: the town building, the library, the highway barn, community center, and the police station. The fire department lobby is open for emergency access only. Fire department asks that you refrain from using town services such as fire, ambulance, and police if you are presenting flu-like symptoms and are able to make contact with your primary care physician. The use of these services are not medically necessary, will only burden our ability to serve those in need of immediate intervention by medical personnel. No general business should be brought into the fire department lobby, and I think by that they mean like burn permits and things like that. Please call by phone. At this time, most general services have been suspended by the state. It is our intent to maintain access to the lobby due to life-saving equipment inside, including a direct phone to dispatch as well as an automatic external defibrillator. Finally, for this part, I want to make a few announcements on behalf of the Council on Aging. As we know, the Pompous Syndicate Community Center is closed, unfortunately. All COA classes, events, and field trips are canceled. Van transportation is continuing to run for essential purposes: medical, pharmacy, grocery, bank, employment only. They have some detailed instructions I'm not going to go into on how to book a ride there. Please contact them. The COA food program is closed to the public. Food is available, though, through contacting Outreach or the Stow town social worker via telephone. I don't have the phone number. Actually, I do, 978-897-1880. They are given a list of items. You give them a list. The COA staff packs it up. They call, the resident calls when they're coming to pick it up, and the staff will leave the bag at the entrance for pickup. They still have durable medical equipment available. That's, things like the handicapped toilet seats and grab bars and things like that. Stowe residents can call and speak with an outreach worker or the town social worker to make arrangements for that. The Minuteman meals are packed up to go for clients to enjoy at home. The COA staff is utilizing technology and other resources to inform Stowe residents who are in need of immediate assistance to call COA and speak with an outreach worker or the town social worker. That's if you need food or durable medical equipment, anything like that. Please, if you need help, call 978-897-1880 and somebody can help.
Your microphone is off.
Okay, should be on.
We lost you.
Try again.
Me?
Yes, we lost you.
You're back.
I'm back? I don't know what happened. Okay. Both the outreach and town social worker are reaching out to clients to assist with any needs they have. I also want to read on behalf of the Stowe Food Pantry. They need volunteers. Several have already offered to volunteer, and they expressed appreciation for that. They have a new drive-up pantry plan, and they need more help. They're looking for volunteers who are not in the high-risk group for COVID-19. They'll need help unloading delivery trucks and sorting food and pre-packing client orders and bringing stuff to client cars. They're having volunteers work in groups of no more than 4 to 6, and they're taking all CDC precautions. If you are available and would like to help for an hour or two on April 1st, April 2nd, April 3rd, April 4th, or 5th, please contact Benita at stowfpvolunteers@gmail.com. That's stowfpvolunteers@gmail.com, and say what dates you're available, dates and times you're available. And that is it for Chairman's comments. And now, thanks to the miracles of technology,
You got Joe Landry.
I can't see Joe
I can't see
Landry.
Joe Landry.
I'll see what he needs.
Joe, you need something?
And I'll use him.
Okay, I'm moving
No,
on.
Jim,
Yeah.
sorry, I waved earlier when your microphone was off.
Okay. So I'm seeing only Maureen, myself, Courtney, and Ron. Everybody else, I'm not getting any video. I'm seeing names. And that's fine if that's voluntary. Well, a few people are turning back on. Okay. All right. Thanks to the miracles of technology, I'm still going to do public input. Any public input on any matter not on our agenda tonight? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on. Brian, Courtney, Tom, did you have a chance to look at correspondence? Courtney and Tom, maybe not. Anybody see anything in correspondence? It's all about COVID-19, and it's all these orders that we're now complying with. Does anyone have anything that they want to mention to me for a future agenda? Tom,
Yeah.
did I hear you?
Yeah, one of the things you may just want to do, because, you know, in case anybody can't see people like myself, maybe just confirm that the four of us are here for procedural.
That's not a bad idea. So yes, all four selectmen, Ms. Frazier, Mr. Ryan, Mr. Burke, and myself are present either virtually or in person. And also, Tom, thanks, while you're mentioning that procedural thing, I think we're going to have to do all votes by roll call tonight. You know, if for no other reason than I can't see Tom, and I don't want everybody saying aye at the same time. So I will do roll call votes, and there's only four of us. All right, we're now going to, and we don't have a set of minutes to approve, right, Maureen? Maureen? No minutes? Okay. We do have an appointment to the Historical Commission of Stacen Goldman. Is Stacen Goldman by any chance present with us virtually?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing well.
Usually would have you come up to the table and have a seat, so consider yourself having been invited to do that.
All right.
And we've got your email and your application materials, and why don't you tell us something about why you're, oh, there you are, hi.
Yeah, hi.
And why don't you tell us something about why you want to be on the Historical Commission?
Well, I mean, I work in history. I'm a curator at a history museum in Framingham, and I have a lot of experience working in historical nonprofits and specifically also in historic preservation. And I was just sort of interested in getting more involved with the town and in learning more about its history and having an opportunity to sort of get my hands on all of it. So my husband saw the opening on the town website. He was like, you know, the Historical Commission is looking for another member. And so I sent an email.
Great.
And I think that's great. I think I remember seeing in here that you've only been in town about 2 years.
Yeah, we moved here in 2017.
Yeah, I think that's great. It usually takes people like, 8 or 9 years to decide to get their foot wet. So congratulations to you.
Thanks.
Dot, are you chair, Dot, of the Historical Commission?
Yes, I am.
You want to officially make a recommendation?
We recommend Stanford as being a good member for our group.
That sounds great. Jason, thank you very much for stepping forward.
Yeah.
Mr. Burke, you have any comments?
No, thank you very much for stepping forward.
Ms. Frazier?
Ditto. Thank you for stepping
Any
forward.
comments?
Sounds like you'll be a great fit.
And ditto from me.
Terrific. In that case, I will accept a motion.
Would you
Mr.
like me to-
Chairman, on the
Yes.
recommendation of the Historical Commission, I move to appoint Stacen Goldman to the Historical Commission to complete the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2022.
Second from Tom Ryan.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Stacen Goldman to the Historical Commission to complete the remainder of unexpired 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2022. Further discussion. Ms. Goldman, this is your last chance to back out. You still want to do this? All those in favor, oh, I can't do that, I'm so sorry. We'll do this by roll call. Mr. Burke,
Aye.
Ms. Fraser,
Aye.
Mr. Ryan,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. And Ms. Goldman, you're appointed.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much for stepping forward.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so
and you
much.
can and you can see the town clerk to get sworn in.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan beat me to it. Mr. Burke reminded me to say that. So, thank you, Ms. Goldman.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have to admit, I'm starting to like this virtual meeting. I got more room to spread out, and I can see everybody right in front of me. It's something I can get used to. And next on our agenda is the appointment of a police officer. Do I have anybody from the police here or Mr. Fitzpatrick? I think I told them that they didn't need to bother. And I do not have anybody. Okay. My fellow selectmen, you have the materials, I believe, in the packet. Mr. Ryan, are you at all familiar with the process that was done to pick Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes, I am. The chief, as well as his two officers, two sergeants, and Sergeant Thrain and oh, come on. Sergeant Solis, yes, I was talking to the other day, but basically they ended up going through all of the candidates that they had that sent in applications after it was posted. They narrowed it down to 3, and then out of the 3, they felt that this gentleman was or Brendan Fitzpatrick was the best candidate, and he was a very good fit. Early or mid last week, Sergeant Solis went down to do a deeper background check on him, and he came back with glowing recommendations. So generally, we end up having face-to-face interviews, but given the current situation, we decided that the 3 officers that really will be working with him, you know, they've been doing a stellar job picking candidates, so we felt that it was worth just moving forward without having a face-to-face interview with them.
Has this position been open for a while?
It has been.
Yeah, I thought. Okay.
And it's getting harder and harder to recruit people. So
Bill,
it's
thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Bill, do you want to add anything?
A couple of quick points.
You might want to speak up a little bit. Can people hear Bill?
A couple of quick points. I'm going to echo what Tom just said briefly. It's becoming more difficult to find qualified candidates, especially in any measurable numbers for an evaluative process. This is an open seat. We desperately need to get it filled sooner rather than later from my perspective. And as Tom stated, the current social conditions we're in made it more difficult to go through. Typically I have a committee. Tom serves on it, the other public safety department serve on it. We go for a second round. I felt for both of the reasons I just stated and Tom did, that in the interest of time, we had a candidate that compared to some recent, and we failed to even get a reference last time we went through. So this is, for us, what I call a success on this first phase. And they're happy with what they found on the reference checks, which is critically important. So I'm very supportive of this. And we get to put him on the street very, very soon. He's already qualified. And the sooner we get him out, the better off we are.
Okay, thank you, Bill. All right, any questions or discussion from my fellow selectman, Mr. Burke?
Yes, the factors that were just listed by my colleague, Mr. Ryan, and our town administrator, certainly enough to overcome my natural reluctance to hire one of our police officers sight unseen. But based upon what I can review of his experience and credentials, I just want to know how did we get so lucky? Well, I can't answer that, but you brought it up. I have no knowledge. We're fortunate.
Just good living, Brian. Good living.
You speak for yourself, Mr. Roy. Timing and circumstances in general is how you find yourself getting lucky, and you happen to be needing an officer at this time.
Ms. Frazier, any comments, questions?
No, I trust that the police department, the officers that interviewed this candidate knew what they were looking for, and more than we would anyway, or than I would. I'll speak for myself. So I'm happy to take their recommendation. And
I sort of agree with Ms. Frazier. I mean, as a practical matter, we rely on the recommendations of those who screen the candidates and make recommendations. We do typically have a face-to-face meeting with a new officer. That is, it's a nice little event. Sometimes their family shows up. Maybe, there's some photographs and get to know them a little bit, but we don't have that luxury right now. So I feel perfectly comfortable. Everyone having had something to say, I will be happy to accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move on the recommendation of the Police Officer Search Committee, I move to appoint Brendan Fitzpatrick as a full-time police officer for the Stow Police Department for a 1-year probationary period from the effective date of hire.
Second, Tom.
Well, I recognize your voice, Tom.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure.
Motion made and seconded on the recommendation of the Police Officer Search Committee to appoint Brendan Fitzpatrick as a full-time police officer for the Stow Police Department for a 1-year probationary period from the effective date of hire. I should note for everyone, a 1-year probationary period is typical for a new officer. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Well, can't do that. Mr. Burke.
Aye.
Ms. Frazier.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. So that's unanimous. All right, very good. Thank you. And next on the agenda is, this is the appointment of a highway employee. And I thought I saw Mr. Nadeau.
Here.
There you are, Steve. Hi. So is Brian?
I see a phone number. I'm hoping that's his that's showing at the bottom of the screen.
Yes, I am here.
And we just lost you, I think, Jim. You froze up.
Oh, yeah.
Brian did chime in. He's here. So at the bottom of our screen, there's a phone symbol. That's Brian's cell phone.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello?
Hello, Brian.
Yes, hi. There you are. How we doing?
We're doing well. Trying to recover somebody that is having some difficulty with their microphone.
Oh, okay.
So once he's back online, then resume.
Hi, everybody. My computer or my internet connection crashed. So, Brian Taranto, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So, for those at home, Brian is a crew chief for the highway department, and the proposal is to hire his son, Colin, as, I think, a laborer. Is that correct, Steve?
He's recommended for the temporary position to fill Derek, who's been called to active duty by the Army for the next 400 days. So he is a temporary truck driver or laborer position that he's applied for.
Okay. And any time that you hire a relative of another employee, particularly that other employee is in a supervisory position, there are certain due diligence matters that the appointing authority has to go through. Brian, you filled out the conflict of interest disclosure form. Just let me ask you a couple of questions. So you're the crew chief, right?
Yes, sir.
And will you actually be Colin's supervisor doing his performance evaluations and determining his compensation, or is that somebody else?
No, I will not be doing that.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I will not. At some points, higher management will ask me to ask how their performance is and things like that. But that's about it.
So you're saying they might ask for your opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
About how is he doing, how is he not doing, and I just report back to them.
To the extent that they ask for your opinion, do you think you can be objective even though he's your son?
Yes.
Okay. Steve, are you there?
I'm here.
Who would Colin's technical supervisor be?
Brian Hatch
Okay.
does the daily, putting the work schedule together, who he feels should be doing it. Same with call outs and overtime. It's Brian first, and when Brian's not in, it's me. And we had the highway department has had a procedure in place for years to make it fair, that they've been following like most other DPWs that have it in a union contract. Even though we don't have a union, we follow that same call out procedure. Goes by seniority, going down the list. Whoever accepts, he's done until everybody else has had a chance to have overtime for call outs to make it fair.
So you're talking about overtime.
That's one part of the supervision that is talked about through the Ethics Commission. I spent a lot of time on the phone with the ethics on Friday, and again over the last 2 days, making sure that we crossed our T's and dotted our I's, that there's no improprieties.
Steve, let me ask you this. Do you think that you and Brian Hatch can rely on Brian Taranto's opinion of Colin's performance, or at least appropriately filter his comments through the fact that Colin is his son?
I believe we can do that. I also feel that because we're such a small crew, that Brian Hatch and I both know what the guys are doing for the most part. It's just when we hear things, sometimes it's going to Brian Taranto and verifying what we've heard or what we've seen, that he is seeing the same issues too. So I think that because we're such a small crew, we already have a good handle on our people, because there's only 7 guys in the field working. The other 3 of us are our support staff in the office.
All right, thank you. So questions on this matter, not the appointment of Colin, but on the matter of the potential conflict of interest from other selectmen, and I will start with Mr. Burke.
I would just note that this is a temporary appointment. So I don't have any grave concerns.
Ms. Fraser,
in light of that.
thank you. Ms. Fraser.
I don't have any concerns hearing the comments so far.
Mr. Ryan.
I ended up talking to Steve the other day about this a bit, and one of the things is that you know, A, he needs somebody, and B, he feels that you know, he can keep a very good eye on this. You know, one of the other things too is that I think the Taranto family is kind of old school here in town, and I expect that if I asked Brian, he would probably tell me that he might be a little tougher on his son than he would be on anybody else.
So I should note, I don't think it's unusual for municipalities, and certainly not this one, to hire relatives. What we have been doing more so recently is being careful to follow these disclosure requirements and the determinations that have to be made by the appointing authority. And with that in mind, I will take it. So in order to allow the hiring to go forward, the appointing authority, which is us, needs to make a determination. And I will accept a motion that is Mr. Burke ready to use the appropriate words for the motion?
I will do my best, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
I move the board to determine that we do not see a conflict of interest in Crew Chief Brian Taranto supervising his son Colin Taranto, should he be appointed as a temporary full-time truck driver / laborer, that any financial interest that has been disclosed here is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the service which the municipality expects from Colin Taranto, should he be appointed.
May I ask you to amend your motion? We actually don't make the determination whether or not there's a conflict of interest. We just make the determination that the financial interest is not so substantial. So could I ask you to amend your motion to take out everything before that any financial interest is not so substantial?
Well, I'm just reading from the script here.
It's
so,
not appropriate.
Then I will just say that any such conflict of interest in Crew Chief Brian Taranto supervising his son Colin Taranto, should he be appointed as temporary full-time truck driver laborer, that has been disclosed here is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which this municipality expects from the employee, should he be appointed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Mr. Burke, Mr. Ryan. Motion made and seconded to determine that the conflict of interest is not so substantial, that has been disclosed is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee. Further discussion. Brian and Steve, thank you for answering our questions on that. Mr. Burke.
Aye.
Ms. Fresha.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, now on the specific question of actually hiring Colin Taranto. Steve, are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
All right, do you want to speak to that?
After doing a review of the candidates, I recommend the hiring of Colin Taranto for the temporary position of truck driver laborer.
Do you want to describe the process you went through a little bit, or did you already do that in the?
We did the required posting on the town's bulletin board and placed it in a couple of ad places that most public works facilities post. We received 3 applications. One of them has worked for the town in the past for the highway department. The other one has applied for several positions senior. And after vetting those 2 and the way their applications were done, I proceeded to vet Colin, checking his references, making phone calls, and found that he would be the much better fit to the crew that we currently have, especially with this being a temporary position. It made it tougher to fill.
All right, very good. Thank you, Steve. Any discussion from the selectmen on that? Mr. Burke?
I'm satisfied with the highway department's presentation.
Ms. Fresha?
I'm also satisfied. Thank you.
And Mr. Ryan?
I'm good.
All right, then do I have, well, thank you, Steve, for going through all that. I'm glad to see that it was a considered choice. We did have other applicants and candidates, but you made the considered choice to go with Colin. Do I have a motion?
Yes, but before I make that motion, I just want to extend the town's best wishes and prayers for Derek Hopper while he serves
Oh,
in the military over this temporary period. I'm sure everyone joins me, but on that. But having said that, on the recommendation of Highway Superintendent Steve Nadeau, I move to authorize the town administrator to appoint Colin Taranto as truck driver / laborer for the Stow Highway Department effective immediately.
Second.
let's give the second to Mr. Ryan. Motion is made and seconded on the recommendation of the highway superintendent to authorize the town administrator to appoint Colin Taranto as a truck driver laborer for the Stow Highway Department. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call. Mr. Burke.
Aye.
Ms. Fracia.
Aye.
And Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, very good. Thank you very much, everyone, on that. We have a document that needs to be signed on the conflict of interest. Mr. Burke and I will sign it here, and I'll give it to Maureen and Ms. Fracia. Mr. Ryan, you can come in and sign it some other time. Actually, I'm going to suggest, does somebody want to make a motion authorizing me to sign on behalf of the board?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to authorize the chair to sign the disclosure under Chapter 268A, Section 19 by Brian Taranto on behalf of the board. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 That's right. Okay. I violated the rule, but no harm done. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, next matter, I think, is a series of applications for one-day liquor licenses from Honey Pot Hill Orchard. And I thought I saw Chelsea Martin is with us.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. So a little background for everyone. Honey Pot approached us last year to get a series of one-day liquor licenses for the fall to serve hard cider. And, recognizing that ultimately they most likely had to apply for a license from the ABCC, but they hadn't had a chance to do that yet. We issued the licenses with a few suggestions, instructions that they proceed to apply to the ABCC for the permanent license. And we find ourselves here in March. And Chelsea, do you want to take it away and explain what's gone on since and what you're looking for?
Yeah. So we have all of our applications ready for the ABCC. Jim gave me the contact information of a guy who works there. I talked to him. He was very nice. He does think that our license will probably get through in time. The coronavirus compounded with, we had EEE on the farm last year, and it severely impacted our numbers for school groups. And I've just learned in 6 years that if something can go wrong for us, it will go wrong. I'm only applying for the one-day licenses as a backup. Hopefully we will get our full license by August and this won't be a problem. If we do have the license go through on the state level, we will still pay for the one-day licenses, but we will be rescinding using them. We will ultimately go with the license from the state if we can. We will still be getting our own insurance as we did last year, and it will be all of the same stipulations as it was last year. It went very well. We would like to continue doing it. Yeah, I know it's not the ultimate plan, but I'm just trying to back myself up because come August, if we don't have anything in place, I'm in a lot of trouble.
So Chelsea, let me, if I understand correctly, what you want to do is you want to take your excess apples and have them distilled to hard cider by another farm that does have a farmer winery license from the state. and then buy back the hard cider and sell it at retail. Is that roughly correct?
That's what we're hoping to do eventually. That's not what we did last year.
Okay.
It's probably not what we'll do this year either, to a point. We don't start pressing cider until August. So it would be very difficult for us. Last year we did sell him like 70 gallons of cider, but out of the 700 gallons that we got from him, it was a very small percentage. So we would have to start, either way, the license that we got from the state would be applicable. He said that it was fine even if we're buying it from another farm. But we probably won't be able to get that in place this year. The guy I talked to from the ABCC said it was okay, since we already have a relationship with someone with a farmer winery license.
Chelsea, when you say you're not going to be able to get that in place, what are you referring to? This arrangement I just talked about?
No, we won't be providing enough cider to him for it to be considered our product. He'll have to get cider from multiple different sources. He is a wholesale cider maker, so he makes cider and sells it wholesale to retailers.
So, okay, so it sounds like ultimately, though, you want to go in that direction, and the
Yes.
farmer winery license is
Yes.
the best choice.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So and you're about to file for the ABCC?
Yeah, I have everything, everything filled out, all of the online applications. I've just been holding off because, and honestly, I don't have to hold off. I'm going to apply tomorrow. But there was some confusion, as we talked about, under the Chapter 12 versus Chapter 19.
Yes, that seems like it, and that seems like it's been cleared up.
Yes, which is
Okay.
great. So now I'm going to apply tomorrow. I have full intention. I've filled out all the paperwork. It was a little bit more complicated than I initially thought it was going to be. I had to get all of the deeds for the farm. We have to have a layout of the farm winery location. There was just a lot more going into it than I initially thought. But I have everything together now, so I'm going to apply.
Okay, and the guy from ABCC, whose name is Ralph, he's confident that they can do it in 8 weeks or less, right?
Yes, he was pretty confident.
But you never know.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's my problem with it. But I do appreciate you guys hearing me out again.
Well, can I share with you just where I'm coming from on this?
Of course.
I want you to get to the point where you can do what you want to do. And I must say, it seems like from the public safety perspective, everything I hear is that it worked out fine last fall. But it seems to me the best thing to do is to let you apply to the ABCC, let it go forward. If they issue it in 8 weeks or less, that's great, then you got what you need. And if for some reason they don't, you've got plenty of time to come back here for your Plan B license, which will not allow you to distill any kind of apples. Doesn't that make sense?
I just, if that's what you guys want to do, I am willing to go forward with that. I just really wanted to have this kind of settled, so that I didn't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, I know. And I could tell that from talking to you, and I hope Ralph put your mind at ease a little bit.
He did. Unfortunately, there's multiple parts to the licensing. It's not just the state, and the TTB licensing, which you do first, is having problems. So there won't be any issue on the state front, but on the federal front, there very well could be some problems, just because it seems like Massachusetts is doing well, but on the federal level, they're not being as efficient processing licenses at this point.
So when you say problems, do you mean that on the merits you may not get it, or do you mean?
Oh, no, he just said that they were really slowed down.
So I was only speaking for myself. That's my personal preference. Let me open it up and hear from some other selectmen. Mr. Burke.
First of all, I want to thank the chair for devoting so much time to researching this issue.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it.
And for connecting the applicant to the appropriate ABCC personnel. I understood even last fall that the chair would have scruples in granting one-day license series again.
Me too.
But especially since the language of section 14 in which the applicant is applying as section 14 of chapter 138 says a license under this section should not be granted to any person. Well, his application for a license under section 12 is pending before the licensing authorities. On the other hand, it seems as though the applicant is working with the ABCC to process a section 19 application. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit confusing, and I understand more now than I ever thought I did before, but we are, just so everybody knows, eventually planning. The whole reason we went into this in the first place is because we end up having a lot of apples left over at the end of the season, and I'm trying to find a way where those can be used and not wasted. So that's the ultimate goal of this. It is a lot more paperwork than I ever thought it would be. But that is what we are ultimately trying to do. Last year was to see if it was even a viable option for us, and it did go very well. We had a good time. We sold some cider. The neighbors seemed to like it. Setting it up to make it ourselves is a bit more work, but we are applying for the license to make it ourselves. So that is a different license than a straight liquor license. It also is a little bit more complicated to receive from the federal and state government because you are making alcohol. So there's more oversight involved.
You're running it still.
And you understand, Chelsea, that pursuant to the one-day liquor license.
Yes, we can do that. Yes.
Well,
yes.
Let me finish my sentence so everybody understands. You cannot make alcohol. You cannot even contract out to have it made on your behalf with your own apples.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that, and I double checked this, just like last year, the applicant would have to purchase the alcohol for resale from a wholesaler, if I'm not mistaken.
Approved wholesaler.
Approved wholesaler.
Yeah.
We'd be going through the same guy. It would be Pony Shack Cider again.
Well, that's who you sent your apples to have them turned into cider, right?
No. So we worked with him last year as well. The goal is eventually he will help us turn our apples into cider. He knows a lot about that, but we haven't actually, we sold him fresh cider. Hard cider can be back sweetened with fresh cider. So it's made, it cuts down the alcohol content. But none of our cider was actually made into hard cider last year, and it would be the same this year. So he just takes fresh cider from us and adds it to the alcohol, and it makes it taste better, if that makes sense.
Not really, but okay.
None of our apples are being made into hard cider, so it would not be considered a breach of the contract as of what we're discussing.
Ms. Frazier, did you have a question?
No, sorry. I think it all makes sense to me, and my only comment is that I understand, Chelsea, you're wanting to be prepared. I totally get, kind of getting all your ducks in a row well ahead of time and not having to think about it again. It seems to me, I don't have it in front of me what the cost of your licenses are, but I sort of get the sense that what Jim is asking you is if you feel comfortable waiting a little bit longer because you might not have to spend the money on those licenses if your other one comes through on time, or if you have a sense that it's tracking properly through the system.
That's really nice of you. Yeah, I guess part of me is worried that we have a lot of issues coming our way because of coronavirus and potential labor shortages. And I just think that maybe my next couple months are going to be terrible. And not that, like I said, if you guys are more comfortable waiting, I have no problem waiting. If everyone seems to be on the same page, I was just more worried about that than anything else. So I'll leave it up to you guys. If you are more comfortable waiting a couple months and seeing what happens, that's fine with me. I'm just concerned from my end that I know come like July or August, if I don't have everything set up, I tend to forget like my own brain in my apartment at the beginning of the day. So that was my only concern, was I just wanted to put it out there. And if you guys are happy going through with it today, I would love to have it off my plate. But if you would rather wait and that would make you more comfortable, I'm fine with that as well.
Mr. Ryan, anything to add?
Well, that's it. I think I'd be much more comfortable waiting. I think that, you know, if Chelsea were to come back, if she applies in the next couple weeks, and then after 3 months, if she hasn't gotten it, which would bring her to the end of June, I'd be more than happy to entertain it then, but I'd rather wait to see, make sure that the follow through has been done, the application's been put in, and if there's a delay that is going to put some hardship on them, then I'm happy to help out at that point.
That's fair enough to me. If that would make you guys feel more comfortable. I have the applications all set, so I can apply and we can see where the wind takes it. As long as everyone's okay with me coming back and begging by June if it ends up not working out. But I will have the paperwork to show that I have applied so that you guys can have due diligence. If that would work out better for you, that's totally understandable.
That would make me more comfortable. I understand what you're trying to do, and your Plan A requires a state license. So I want to let you pursue that. I understand you have to have a Plan B if that takes too long, and we can entertain that. But I think we're all satisfied that chances are now you have the time. And if you don't have the time, you can come on the state side, you can come back and apply for these licenses. Mr. Burke has something to say.
Well, first of all, I think from what I hear from my colleagues, there's a preference to wait, which I understand, given the fact that the chair has greased the skid, so to speak.
I just connected her to somebody who knew what they were talking about.
Well, that's good.
Which was cool.
Very productive and commendable. So if that's the sense of the board, the one thing I would recommend to my colleagues is if we could put this down to be called forward on a future agenda for a date certain.
So let's do this. Let's entertain a motion to table these applications until the second meeting in June.
That works for me.
So moved.
Second.
Maureen, did you get that? Yep. Okay. Motion been made and seconded to table the Honey Pot one-day liquor licenses until our second meeting in June. All further discussion. Mr. Burke.
Aye.
But I should say all those in favor. Mr. Burke. Aye. Ms. Frazier.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. All right, Chelsea. So that's your plan. Good luck. Keep us informed. All right.
I will. I can definitely loop you guys in on an email if I get a confirmation back, yay or nay or whatever comes. I'll definitely keep you informed, and I appreciate you guys hearing from me again.
Sure.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You know where to find me.
Well, I would suggest that you get back in touch with us and let us know where it stands with the ABCC no later than the second week of June, like around the time of our first meeting, so we know.
Yeah, I'll try to get back in touch with you guys by the end of May. So
Okay,
you have
that's
some
fine.
idea what's going on. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Is it okay if I go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
This
Chelsea,
this is like any selectmen's meeting. People can come in for what they need to do.
I don't know what the rules are right now.
you're not allowed to leave.
Not allowed to leave.
Okay.
And
Best of
Chelsea,
luck.
I'm actually looking forward to having the first legal still in Stow.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm super excited. It's going to be fun. You guys are always welcome.
All right, Chelsea. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
So our next item on the agenda is this permit for Stowe Cleanup Day. Sandy Taft. I thought I saw Sandy on the call a while ago. Oh, hi, Sandy. There you are.
Hi.
Hi. So you and I had an email exchange. I think we were kind of thinking the same thing, but, you know, about current conditions, and does it make sense to go forward? But why don't you go ahead and explain?
Sure. So, hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm Sandy Taft from 303 Red Acre Road. And my wife, Tara, and I have been involved with the Stow Town cleanup starting at 12 years ago. This would be our 12th annual Stow cleanup. And the way it's always worked is we've had space down on the lower common on Saturday mornings from 7:30 till 12, just on one Saturday. And this year we're proposing April 25th. What we do at that time is we hand out plastic bags, we hand out gloves, we have scones available from Emma's, the gloves come from Aubuchon Hardware, and we have a map of the town, and we kind of direct people where others haven't gone to clean up. And so there's an interaction that takes place. It's not a big gathering. We're there from 7:30 till noon, and last year we had about 100 different participants sign up because we keep track, and of course we've got the waivers now that we are required to have people sign. So we had about 100 participants, and we handed out about 135 bags. So the question I have is, with where we are with COVID-19, does it make sense? I'm not sure what people's comfort levels are. Tara and I have talked a little bit about this. We are sensitive ourselves about not wanting to be too close to people, et cetera. So, but we might be able to get creative in the sense that there are situations where people are picking up takeout food, for example, and just driving up to a curb. So maybe we can make something like that. But I wanted to, one, get a sense from the selectmen on what they thought, and two, understand what the rules were with regard to how we would move something like this forward, because it is a gathering, if you will. It's not a very large gathering. Maybe at tops, we might have more people there, 10 people at a time, and that's just because people are standing around enjoying the scones and just talking with one another, which is one of my favorite parts of the whole time, is catching up with people. So it'll be a lot less fun just handing out a bag and waving someone off, but the end result's always good. So that's what makes it worth it too.
Well, I'll take a stab at that. You know, I think technically April 25th is beyond the scope of the governor's current order, which I want to say goes to something like the 10th or so. So it may not violate the letter. You know, Sandy, it strikes me, and this is a purely personal opinion, it strikes me as one of those things that perhaps violates the spirit of what his order is, but who knows what the situation is going to be on April 25th. You probably will have 10 or more people at some point. That's just inevitable. On the other hand, most of the people doing the cleanup are going to be, you know, in ones or twos. So I can't tell you that you should postpone. Seems to me like it might be a good idea. My other concern is that, and it's only a minor concern, you haven't spoken to public safety or highway. Now, typically you do, and typically it's very pro forma. And I don't anticipate any problems this year that we haven't had in past years. On the other hand, do I really want public safety in particular spending time right now reviewing plans on this when they have other things to do? That's more of a rhetorical question than anything else. But I don't know how inconvenient or practical it is for you to postpone. So it's kind of your decision, but those are my thoughts. Does anybody else on the board want to weigh in? Mr. Burke?
I think,
I'm sorry, who was that? Who was that? Look, okay, Jonathan, thank you. Mr. Burke?
we have to take our guidance in the first instance from the applicant. And it's a wonderful event. Every year we praise fulsomely the Taft for doing this. I just don't think we have the time tonight to do that. I would be willing to entertain any proposal that the applicant makes, but we need to know definitely what they want to do.
So Mr. Burke is suggesting you should make a decision tonight. Ms. Frazier, any thoughts?
Well, I suspect I'd be happy to hear from the applicant about this. I suspect that roadside cleanup gets more difficult as the poison ivy leaves come out. And so part of doing it early is to go before leaves are out. It's also easier to see refuse when the leaves are not fully out. I also understand that the situation is such that it's sort of difficult to conceive of how things are going to go and whether this is a good idea or not. So recognizing all of the things that have been said already, just wanted to make that comment.
Well, thank you.
Ryan?
Go ahead.
Tom?
Yeah, if Sandy, if you're inclined to do it on the 25th, or, you know, I'll say reserve the date, because obviously you wouldn't want to do anything that's going to create a public nuisance or a public health hazard. But the thing is, obviously, you know, you've got to get ahead of this a little bit. So scheduling it for the 25th, and maybe, as you said, maybe just doing a drive up with drop-in, you know, getting things or giving people bags and sending them on their way so that you don't violate anything that might be in place at the time, you know. But if you wanted to, I'd be supportive of trying to keep things as normal as we can, shall we say. You know, it's always been a very good thing. You've put your heart and soul into it, you and your wife, and I would be supportive of granting the permit, as long as you're willing to, I'll say, make the right decision at the right time, because who knows where we'll be a month from now. But we can't give you a permit a month from now because you can't make any plans to prepare.
Right. So
He raises a good point, Sandy.
yeah, the just to be clear in terms of what the criteria are about a go, no go in terms of the selectmen's eyes, it's really, if the governor says, you know, you can't gather still, if that freezes on, if you will, then I wouldn't be allowed to do it. But if that's been lifted, that would be the only criteria that I would have to meet in terms of what the governor says. There isn't any other thing, absent, you know, getting approval from safety officials in town.
I think so. I mean, if things are like they are right now, I wouldn't do it.
Right. I can't. Yeah.
Right. Because I think you should anticipate 10 or more gathering. But it also, as Mr. Ryan was speaking, I was thinking, it seems like the kind of thing that would be easy to cancel at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happened and you wanted to postpone, you just have to remember to come back to us so we can reissue the permit for a different date. I see you, Ms. Frazier. Just 1 second. Actually, right now, Ms. Frazier.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right. I lost my train of thought, though. You completely derailed that trade. So
I had a thought, which is, Mr. Taft, with this idea of mine, let me know if you think it would spoil the spirit of your project. But would it be possible to do some of the business that could involve gathering? So maybe not, well, so making up packages ahead of time that have gloves and a bag and scone or no scone, depending on what somebody might wish to have. And if there was no scone, the packages could even be distributed ahead of time so that you could begin your disbursement of materials for your volunteers ahead of the day. Then they would have to remember to bring them, but just working around the gathering part. Would it take too much of the fun out of it, or would that help you out?
Well, it's kind of, you just don't know who all's going to show up. And so preparing things ahead of time. I mean, alternatively, and I was thinking that maybe Steve just dropped off. You know, we could have the bags at the highway department and pick up a bag and go that way. So what I'm thinking right now is, because I'm sensitive to tying up too much of your time, is I should talk through with the highway department, with the police department and the fire chief and get their view on this sort of thing about what they think about people getting together. It's more of a safety issue than it ever has in the past, I suppose. This becomes more of a safety issue than any other time. In terms of approval from the selectmen, I guess the question is, do I need approval for a specific date, or do I have approval to move forward once a date's been established, or such that I wouldn't have to come back? I guess that's the thing that I'm wondering about.
I think you need to have approval for a specific date, just in case there's something else going on there. I can't think of anything, but just in case there's something else going on there then. And any permit we would issue today would be conditioned on getting approval from public safety and highway.
One of the things I had thought about is I'll call it the way they, they're probably doing the same kind of thing for takeout food. You could limit the number of volunteers you've got to a couple. Cars could drive up, you could drop it in there and move on. It's like you said, it's not nearly as much fun, but I think, something like that, if you were inclined to do it, it might be doable even under current conditions.
So we need to wrap this up. I have some guests who've been waiting on the Minuteman item.
So I'll make a motion then that I ask for approval for the same date, same time as, which would be 7:30 to noon on April 25th to hold the Stow Earth cleanup event, and that it be contingent upon approval from the highway department, the police chief, and the fire chief.
So technically we make the motions, but
well, that's just so you know what my proposal is.
So Mr. Burke just said so moved. So it's been, and do I have a second?
Second.
Second, to issue the permit for 7:30 to noon, 12:30.
7 to 12:30.
7 to 12:30 on April 25th, conditioned on getting prior approval from public safety and highway. Further discussion.
My motion also included that the applicant should check with the Board of Health too. Was that taken down?
Taken down?
Or is that understood?
Yes, it was your motion, so you're making a friendly amendment. Sandy?
No, I think I said it, but it might have gotten
he's
lost.
added that you need approval from public safety, highway, and Board of Health, which is a good
Understood.
idea. Any further discussion? Ms. Frazier, Mr. Ryan?
Nope. Thank you again for doing it.
Seeing, hearing none, roll call vote. Mr. Burke?
Aye.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Mr. Ryan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That's proved. So you got those conditions, Sandy, and let us know. Sorry we didn't get into the usual discussion of how wonderful an event it is. It is a wonderful event. This year, practicalities have kind of overwhelmed the discussion.
No, understood. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for spearheading this always.
You're welcome.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Sandy.
All right. Next on our agenda is an update on Minuteman. I see Dr. Bouquillon, and I see a block for Alice. Dr. Bouquillon, we touched upon happenings at Minuteman at our budget review. Do you want to give us a more detailed overview? There obviously is some budget impact that we should touch on.
Sure. I have a brief PowerPoint. If you give me control of that, I can operate it, but other than...
I am afraid that is beyond, we didn't have it ahead of time. That is beyond our technical capabilities at this moment. Why don't you just talk to us?
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Apparently it's not beyond my technical capabilities.
I think, yeah, there's some way of doing it. Great.
I would not put it past someone who's running a technical school to be able to figure out technology.
Well, thank you. Let me just go through this quickly. I appreciate everybody's patience. We're in a very strange we're in very strange days. But I'll just go through this quickly, and feel free to raise your hand with the technology you have, or with your hand, and I'll pay attention. So what we've been talking about is that Minuteman has had a long process of fulfilling expectations. Back in 2010, we were asked to create a new regional agreement, which was finally voted on in 2016. We were also asked to create a capital feast for those town members to pay for the new building. Our new building is a year ahead of schedule and we're on budget. We've had increased enrollment from member towns. And that has resulted in a very unique situation for Minuteman. We will have no out-of-district freshmen this fall. Our enrollment will be beyond the design capacity of the school this fall in 6 months. And we have a waiting list that now includes at least 8 member town students. Our enrollment has increased over the last few years, and we're projecting into next year that our member town enrollment will be over 500. You can see the little yellow bar is for the towns that have withdrawn, and that includes next fall. Belmont will no longer be a member, so they're included in that. So we've had that increase of enrollment in just the 9 remaining member towns. And then we still have some non-member towns who will be sophomore, juniors, and seniors next year. So overall, we've increased enrollment while we have been decreasing our staffing. Next year, our budget is about $21 million. That's up 6.5% over this year. The large majority of the debt service hits the assessments next year. That debt service there of $4.5 million represents a 47% increase over this fiscal year. So these are the major drivers. With an increase in enrollment, we have a district technology budget where we have a 1-to-1 program, which means every student gets a laptop. That's helping us right now as we're in a closed school situation, trying to maintain contact with our kids, providing enrichment activities, keeping them connected to the school. Transportation will go up slightly. That's based upon some changes in the laws around providing health insurance to some of these workers. Our athletic services budget is going up because we still don't have home fields. So we're having to rent fields and transport students. Health insurance, we're figuring about an 8% increase. Our debt from our previous borrowing is about $1 million, and our debt from the most recent borrowing that will come into next year's budget is $414,000. We are in the midst of a salary increase. We've voted, and the teachers have approved a 3, 2.2, and 2% cost of living adjustment over the next 3 years, and we have figured that in. And if you look at what's the cost to Stow, because Belmont is leaving, that accounts for about $93,000 of the increase to Stow next fiscal year. So the preliminary assessment for Stow is $1.3 million. I have to move your pictures here so I can see my thing. Okay. And this is sort of a breakdown of what comprises that assessment. And I mentioned it is preliminary. We don't have the governor's budget. And, you know, to be honest, I'm not sure if what's all happening this year right now is going to affect next year's assessment either. But you can see these are the components. And if you look at the increase of $400,000 to Stow, how that breaks down is about $285,000 is based upon the minimum required contribution. Then there's about $105,000 in an increase in an operating assessment, transportation up, debt up, the building project debt. And then there's a decrease because the Neshoba has taken apparently has taken over the middle school program. So that reduces your assessment by $76,000 for a total change in the assessment of $400,000. So we're really in a different, if you put the coronavirus aside and just look at Minuteman, we're in a very different world right now. Previously, we've had low member enrollment. Now we're at full member enrollment, or will probably be in a few years. The school will only be comprised of member district kids. Previously, all kids have had full access to all programs. Now that's not the case. Previously, we were told we had too many non-members. Now we're going to have no non-members in the freshman class. And in 3 years, we'll have no non-members overall. We do have a capital fee, but if you think about it, that capital fee that we've been collecting from non-members this year will be gone in 3 years. This is, I don't know if you can, how well you can see home screens, but we're projecting next year's enrollment because there's been such a change. And I'll just, I'm getting messages, my internet connection is unstable. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but
I think so.
am I? So next year we're projecting about 658 kids. Stow, we were projecting 36, but we were actually going to have more Stow kids next year, which will determine your assessment for the following fiscal year. So we had 20 students from the 8th grade class apply. 18 were offered admission. And 18 have committed to enroll for the 9th grade. So next year we're projecting about 46 students total from Stow, which is the highest it's been in a number of years. And it's great. I think it's great. So this slide just shows the budget history over the last 8 or 9 years. Back in 2017 and 18, we had a total $2 million actual dollar drop in our budget as we were continuing to right-size the school. And as we grow in enrollment, it's not going to all happen in 1 year, but it does need to happen over a couple of years. So as the challenges we're facing now, the withdrawal of towns from the regional district means that fewer members share the costs. You know, Belmont had a special town meeting to rescind their vote to leave the Minuteman district. That vote failed, even based upon a unanimous recommendation from their school committee to stay in the district. High enrollment is creating waiting lists. And little to no out-of-district enrollment means reduced or non-existent tuition revenue in 3 or 4 years. This is our revenue plan for next year. It's not finalized, but it's...
So somebody doesn't have mute on.
Stow TV needs to mute.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Bouquillon.
Thank you. So some of these, the revenue plan here is not finalized, but you'll see Chapter 78 is about level because that doesn't catch up to us for next year until next year with our increased enrollment this past October 1 and next October 1. You can see we're using $900,000 of the non-resident capital fee that we collected this year in order to use to offset assessments. We're using about the same amount of certified excess and deficiency. We're using more tuition we're going to be collecting next year. And we're using about $3 million of tuition that we're collecting this year to offset next year's assessments. So this is a big change when it comes to our assessments, and it's really being driven by enrollment for sure, but mainly by the project debt really hitting the assessments. So that's the extent of my presentation. I do have another document that I can share that kind of projects the debt service going forward. And it looks like this. Can you see that?
I don't have it.
Yeah, let me try. I'll try something else. But anyway, I'll work on getting that. I don't know if you have questions, Jim, or anyone.
Well, you really are in a different model, aren't you? I mean,
yes.
4 or 5 years ago, we were all concerned about non-member districts not paying enough.
Right.
And that's not an issue now. It's all member districts. And I take it from your presentation that that is how it is expected to be for the foreseeable future.
We do, because we had NESDEC did our 8-year enrollment projections of our district, and the 8th grade population is pretty stable from a district-wide point of view. There are some communities that are seeing decreases in 8th grade and elementary school populations. There are other members of our district that are experiencing increases. So if you look this year, we have about 9% of the total 8th grade population applied to Minuteman. Some towns were much more. Stow, almost 20% of the 8th graders applied to be at Minuteman. Arlington, almost 20%. Acton, almost 20%. So we've built a school for 628, and we've already exceeded the design enrollment.
So Stow is now at 46 students.
We're projecting that for next year.
So I assume that that's still pretty far down on the list of member towns, but maybe not as far down as it was.
Do you mean in terms of the participation?
Yes.
You're about 4 or 5 out of 9 member towns.
Yeah. We used to be 7 or 8.
Out of 16.
Yeah. Okay. Questions from other members of the board? Mr. Burke?
No, I saw this presentation at the Finance Committee meeting, and and I'll say what I said there. It's probably a good idea that Charlie Kern pushed us into this agreement. Although I had my doubts at the time.
Ms. Fraser? No, pass?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom?
I'm good.
Okay. Alice, do you want to add anything? Alice, I think you're on mute.
You are correct. I'm really delighted to have the building be full, to have the building be finished, and that the town of Stow is using it and able to use it. I think it's wonderful.
All right. I'll open it up to any questions from other members of the public. Anything. We have all this fancy technology to allow it. Anybody? I can't see you because Dr. Bouquillon just took over my screen.
Is that better?
Still looking at your bonding schedule.
Well, that's yours actually, but
yeah.
Here, let me close.
All right, I want to take it. I don't have any questions from members of the public. Dr. McQuillan, Alice, thank you very much. Very useful.
Our pleasure.
We'll no doubt see one or both of you at town meeting whenever that is.
You're welcome, and everybody stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for waiting to make your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to be at that cider festival. I'll tell you that.
It sounds like it's going to be good. We just got to get it done the right way.
You guys do chemistry there?
Well, we do. We do.
If you could get my screen back the way it was.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me work
It says
on
I'm
that.
viewing Ed Bouquillin's screen.
I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. Stop share.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. All right. Next item on our agenda is a discussion with the moderator, Dave Walrath, and our town clerk, Linda Hathaway.
Shall I go? Oh, I think she's watching in. She'll be up in a second.
She's zooming in about possible delays to the town meeting and the election. I see the moderator. He's got his fancy headphones on and everything. He probably bought that with the $80 salary that he gets every year.
It's only about $50.
$50.
More than
And I see the town clerk, but can I hear the town clerk?
Hello?
Yes. Very good. Very good. We had a test of the Zoom thing on Friday, and Linda couldn't quite get the microphone going, but she was on her phone. I got to see a walkthrough of the entire building as she walked around. So, Dave, I'll start with you. And given the emergency that we are in, obviously there has been some discussion about delaying town meeting as a precaution. That becomes more immediate when you consider that we have to post the warrant relatively soon if we're going to have it at its scheduled date. Do you want to lay out the rules as you understand them regarding postponement of town meeting?
So I put it a little bit differently than I did in the email that I sent. So first, Stow has a bylaw that says we're going to start town meeting the first Monday in May. There's a state law that says the selectmen have the absolute authority to delay it to any time after that date. There's another state law that says town meeting has to be in March, April, May, or June, and we need to complete by the end of June. So unless there's special legislation, which isn't being discussed right now, we probably want to at least plan to start town meeting before the end of June. The selectmen, the way that the selectmen announce, I guess, when town meeting starts is through the warrant. So once the selectmen have posted the warrant, that gets into that step 2 that I talked about, that if we need to delay it further, then the moderator has to decide to delay it. But at this point, because we tend to get pretty close to the 14-day limit for when we need to post the annual town meeting, before the date that it begins, the selectmen are in a good spot that you can decide to postpone it to whenever you feel is a reasonable date. Is that a good summary?
I think so. Basically, I think I want to see whether we're in a position to discuss dates to postpone it to, or obviously whether or not we want to postpone it at all. And I am going to open this up for comment from the floor after we get done discussing. Mr. Town Administrator, do you want to make any comments on this? So right now we're discussing postponing town meeting itself, and not the election.
Yes, my own thoughts are that we're about 8 weeks into the first confirmed case of coronavirus in this country. We're about 6 weeks out from the annual town meeting on May 4th. I just don't know how, given where we are in the condition, meaning the governor's just ratcheted up the isolation or social distancing, irrespective of whether it could be held on the 4th, meaning to say that the governor had reduced some of the restrictions or otherwise. I'm wondering how many people would feel comfortable being next to each other.
Right.
At that point, I wouldn't want to be part of that. And I see no harm being done if we extend it. I could see harm being done if we tried to hold it for the 4th, and things got worse, for example. And my own feeling is I'd go as far into June. Last year when we extended the annual town meeting, it was to the last week of June. The 22nd of June would give you 7 more weeks from the 4th. And
So
things could improve in that period of time.
Are you talking about for town meeting?
For
or
town meeting.
The 22nd?
22nd of June. That would give you 7 additional weeks, which is a little less than what we've already been through at 8 weeks. And we may see that the trend by then has been reduced sufficiently that, close social interaction might be something that our constituents feel comfortable about. Because I'm more worried about that and people not showing up at town meeting because on the 4th or even a few weeks beyond that. So I'd go as far as I could into June and still leave a buffer so that if we got started or we had to, as we worried about last year, I think it was on the 26th last year when we extended it. That'd give us a few days if a natural cause, for example, we needed to go in, open the meeting, and then extend it for a few days. But the 22nd would give you a week. So my viewpoint is, I think the do no harm and most benefit would come from extending it as far as you could. I don't have knowledge of some of the factors that might contravene what I'm saying, but my whole position is that we ought to make people as comfortable as possible. And given that we're 8 weeks into something that still is escalating,
right?
I don't see the 4th as being a practical, unless God intervened. If there is such,
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but what date do you have in mind for the election?
I thought you were asking me. No, I'm just commenting.
Can I answer that?
Let's go to the election. Yeah, Linda. So you know that some legislation passed today that allows the postponement of municipal elections.
Correct. And you can vote to do that change. So if you're going to have it on the 22nd, the election, I would recommend on Saturday, the 27th. I would recommend a Saturday election instead of a weekday election. And mainly because I don't know if kids are going to be in school or not, and I don't really want to be there when they are. And Saturday would be a better date.
So let me open this up to the other selectmen, and then I want to take some comment from the public too. The proposal on the table. And by the way, I don't think there's a need for us to actually vote this tonight. This was originally supposed to be a discussion, but I did change the agenda to allow for a vote if we are in a position to want to do that. Let me start with Mr. Burke. The current proposal is town meeting on the Monday, the 22nd, and the town elections on Saturday, the 27th. Any thoughts on that? And on the issue of postponement in general?
My initial response was that if we took action tonight, it might, in retrospect, seem too hasty. Although I think our town administrator made several thoughtful and trenchant points. If we were to either tonight or a later date continue the town meeting to the 22nd, I think that's probably the best date. And I think that I agree with the town administrator on that. On the other hand, we don't have to worry about schools being open at that point in time. Schools ended by then.
Well, I think Linda's saying unless they decide to extend the school year because of this whole thing.
Well,
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Linda. Is that what you were getting at?
I didn't.
Right. Because I don't know if they're going to extend, they can't go beyond June 30th. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but I would recommend a Saturday. And the reason I would not do if they're not in a school, that's a bonus. But my whole idea is to be out in the cafeteria and gym and not in the music rooms. And if they're not in school, that's not an issue. But
let me get some comment from other selectmen. And I just want to point out to everyone, as I see it, our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 14th, which is a ways away. Ms. Freisha, do you have anything to add to this?
I'm thinking. I kind of agree with the town administrator about going out as far as possible in order to hopefully hit a time when we can get decent attendance at town meeting. Can I ask a point of clarification? My reading of the materials before the meeting tonight led me to understand that we can post the meeting. So we're discussing June 22nd for town meeting and June 27th for the election. And if things were to continue to not seem like they were going well for this, the moderator can put the meeting off further, but we still have to complete everything by the end of June. Is that kind of the gist of it?
That is correct. I imagine if the current virus crisis continues well into June, that the legislature will provide some mechanism to survive financially survive into July. For example, if I think the schools are okay, if the towns don't pass any budget, I believe they go to an automatic 1/12 per month of the budget from the previous year, and they could do something like that. But yeah, the moderator is able to make a declaration to postpone town meeting up to 30 days from the posted date. And as I mentioned I think in the email, if we need to postpone it further, we could just have a pro forma session where the moderator and the clerk and a couple other people meet and delay it further. In fact, there's pending legislation to allow the moderator to extend that 30-day declaration with another declaration. So no one would have to meet. If we needed to go further than 30 days after the posted start of town meeting.
But I guess my question is just out of curiosity, would potentially then maybe there be an extension of that must complete by the end of June?
I would imagine if there's more than one or two towns that don't feel comfortable having a town meeting in June, there'll be special legislation.
But right now there isn't, Courtney.
Correct. That would be.
We ran into this.
That's just a guess.
We ran into this last year. Linda.
So there is legislation, I believe, that's being discussed and written now about town meeting.
Yeah, but I'm trying to clarify what the existing law is. And
Okay.
The existing law is that, and we ran into this last year, for reasons to deal with the budget, and in particular, I think the regional school budget, we currently have to finish town meeting by the end of June. Some of us were nervous last year by having the continuation date to June 26th. But if things got really bad, Linda and David are suggesting that there probably would be special legislation that would go through fairly quickly.
I think currently only have 3 FinCom members here.
Rich, I think, okay.
Great, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
May I ask a question, Linda? I know you want to add something, but I need some information. Maureen, when do we have to post the warrant? If we do not reschedule town meeting?
The week of the 20th. It goes to the printer on the 15th that day. And then
April 24th.
the residents the following Wednesday.
But, okay, but.
So it's always 14 days before town meeting.
And you have to take action. You have to send it off around the 15th?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fine. Okay, that's good. Linda, I'm sorry, you had something you wanted to add.
Yes, the election. So my deadlines are moving pretty quickly. I will be sending the ballots to the printer in a couple of weeks. If we aren't going to postpone, and I will continue to working towards a May 12th election. And if I do that, and once absentee ballots and everything go out, we will need a court order to change the date.
Okay, so I'm going to make a suggestion, but then I want to hear from Mr. Ryan, and then I want to take any comment from the public. I want to make a suggestion that we not make a final decision tonight, but that we reschedule our first meeting in April from the 14th to the 7th to give everybody a little bit of a cushion. And we can take care of it then. I agree with, I think Mr. Burke said, you know, even if we have dates that sound good tonight, I sort of want to sleep on it a little bit. Actually, can I hear from Tom? Because Tom, do you have anything to say?
You know, one of the things I was looking at is, you know, by when do we have to make a decision? And it sounds like probably April 7th is a good time.
It sounds like we have to start the ball rolling by the 14th or 15th. So I don't want to wait till our next regularly scheduled meeting. So I don't see any reason. I prefer to move it up a week. I mean, if I had to place a bet, I'm going to bet that we're going to postpone it. The exact date, I think, is a little bit up in the air. The town administrator wants to add something. Then I'm going to go to any members of the public who have something to add.
One of the things I was thinking about is that the finance committee is under a crunch time on the current schedule. I think they even get delayed a bit more. I believe their public hearing is scheduled for the 7th. And it would seem to me that if you wait until then to determine whether you're going to extend or not, I'm not sure what that does to the public hearing mix, but I think it would complicate it some. And I guess what I'm saying is I see no harm being done by going longer, and I see complications by going sooner. And I think the sooner you establish the date, some of these other unintended consequences can be obviated. And I just can't see what waiting till the 7th. But I mean, I don't know how many choices you're thinking of, but I couldn't figure any myself that would have.
Well, that's a good point.
Substantively counteracted what I'm saying, which is the longer the better. Give yourself a little buffer, but.
Rich Eckel, I see you on the call. Is Bill right that us waiting till the 7th would make some complications for you?
I would defer to Bill on this, but that's the date we're supposed to have our public meeting. And I think we need 2 weeks to announce it because we have to put the ad in the paper. Maureen could actually chime in a little bit on the timing here too, if she's available, but that.
2 weeks for the FinCom public hearing, 2 weeks notice for the FinCom public hearing?
In the paper, yeah.
In the paper, yeah.
So if we waited to our earliest would be April 14th, then I don't know, I'd have to figure out with the paper exactly, but I think we have to get it in the Friday before to be in the papers that week. So, you know.
So bottom line, Rich, is that it's better for you if we make up our minds tonight?
I mean, I just think there's a cascade of things. I mean, Bill has a real good sense of this. So yeah, I think it'd be better to make a decision tonight, but I feel like deciding everything on FinCom seems a little bit.
No, it's just a factor. Yeah. And yes, I see you, Tom, and Ellen, I see you. But Linda, I thought I saw your hand up first. No.
Oh, then.
Tom?
Yeah, I suppose one of the things that I started thinking about is what do we really buy on ourselves by waiting a couple weeks? I think Bill makes a very good point. Probably the sooner that we can let people know what's really going on, the better. The thing that scared me more than anything else was when Linda starts talking about court order if we somehow miss a date.
No, we don't want to do that.
And so what would happen if, on the 7th, God forbid things are even worse and people can't get out to make the decision. So, does it kind of make sense to, bite the bullet and move on?
Okay. Let me go to the public. I'm trying to move this along. Ellen, I thought I saw your electronic hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me? Thanks, Jim. So I guess I have a couple questions. One is, I know other towns sometimes do elections before town meeting. I have no idea what's on the warrant this year. So I was wondering, it just makes me nervous to do it that late into June in terms of turnout. I mean, of course, who knows? Is anybody going on vacation this year? Maybe not. But so that was just a question about whether you can do elections before town meeting. I did a quick look in the bylaws and I didn't see if it's set by the bylaws.
Linda,
Yeah.
I think you told us we can, right? No, or did Dave say that? Linda?
Yes, you can hold it before town meeting. We've done it before. And the only thing that I would just say is that to relieve people's issues with this, that we plan to do a lot of this voting by mail.
Yeah.
And do a lot of pressure to push and get absentee balloting. The new legislation that passed yesterday allows for early voting by mail, and we're hoping that a good portion of that does come in by mail. So ballots will be available 3 weeks prior to the election.
It's an interesting question. I don't know why the order of town meeting, then election, or election, then town meeting. I don't know why that affects turnout. What I thought might affect turnout was Linda's suggestion about holding it on Saturday, which has always sounded like a good day to me, but then I hear largely from parents that Saturdays are bad days. But in this, I don't know.
Well, that's why we're going to offer the early voting. And so that they can get it done and don't have to be there on Saturday.
True. I was hearing that mostly before early voting was so prevalent. Anyone else?
Well, can I just add one more thing? I mean, in the past, I mean, the reason that at least I have always liked that we did town meeting first is that if there is any kind of override question or, exclusion question, you get the presentation before you vote. So that's the obvious thing. And the only other thing I was just going to point out when, I think it was Rich talking about the 2-week notice for the hearing. Today's the 24th, so it's 2 weeks from today that should have had a notice in the paper last week if the hearing was going to be on the 7th. So I think we've already missed that window. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, I think the FinCom.
We made the paper because we put it in last Friday, so it's going in tomorrow.
I stand corrected. Didn't see it.
Any other members of the public? Oh, and there are no questions on the warrant right now that would require an override question, right? At the moment. Town administrator wants to add something, but then I will go back to any members of the public, though I don't see a lot raising their hands, electronic or otherwise.
Similar to the argument that I made for delaying the annual town meeting. If we were going to consider having the local election before the town meeting, again, how much closer do you get to where we are at the present time? And I guess my presumptive position would be is that you're endangering, again, affecting people and their ability to come or their comfort level in coming. Every day you back closer to where we are when, at the moment, as I said, we're 8 weeks into it, the trend line is going up as to restrictions. I just, all you're doing is trying to manage risk, and I don't see the need for it.
Okay, question, well, any other members of the public want to weigh in on this? I mean, it's the town's elections and town meeting. Okay, seeing and hearing none. Selectmen, do you feel ready to make a decision tonight on this? The current proposal is town meeting on Monday, June 22nd, election on Saturday, the 27th. Mr. Burke.
I have been persuaded by our town clerk and our town administrator that we should take action tonight to move the annual town meeting to June 22nd. And I will so move when the chair takes such motions. In addition to what the town administrator and the town clerk just said in favor of keeping the natural rhythm of this town, which is to hold our elections the week following town meeting, I think that we risk turnout decrease if we do not follow our traditions. And these are very long-standing traditions.
I thought,
Excuse me.
if I could, oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, but, and don't worry, I got only one more sentence, Mr. Chair. But I am still of two minds on whether to have the town election on the Saturday following the June 22nd town meeting or the next Tuesday. And I'm wondering if we can maybe at least keep that decision for another night.
Okay, on that question though, I'm inclined to just defer to the town clerk. She's got to run this thing. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure.
Defer to the town clerk so slavishly.
On something like that?
On the election, I mean, I'm willing to go for a Saturday. And granted, the kids probably won't be in school on that Tuesday, the 30th. But if they are, I don't want to impact them. I want to be able to keep the distance. I want to be able to have a further spread out and use the cafeteria and the gym. And if the kids are in school on the 30th, that's not going to happen.
I will say one point of information. I do think that there is a possibility with a likelihood greater than zero of an article that will require a ballot question, an override. And I'm not going to hide the ball. You know, everybody knows we've been talking to DEP about PFAS cleanup. It's possible that we may get ahead of that and have something on the warrant. So on the question of what I've convinced, I'm sort of talking to myself. I've convinced myself that I want to keep it the usual way: town meeting, then town election, for the reason Ellen mentioned. You get the presentation at the town meeting before the election. Do any selectmen feel comfortable enough to make a motion?
May I ask a point of information?
Yes, of course you may.
But I'll wait until my colleagues have been heard on this.
Why don't we do that? Ms. Fraser, you have something to add, or do you feel?
I'm willing to make the motion.
Okay. May Mr. Burke ask his point of information first?
Absolutely.
Mr. Burke.
My term ends in May of 2020. Will there need to be any authorization? Let me finish. Continuing my term, or is that contained in the legislation, or should I just stop showing up after that date?
As much as I would like that to happen, the legislation that passed today, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, the legislation that passed today said that any officials whose elections end continue in office until the new date for election. Is that right, Linda?
Correct.
So with that, Ms. Fraser, are you ready to make a motion?
Darn.
I agree.
If Mr. Burke would prefer to make the motion, I wouldn't want to keep him from doing so.
No, I'd like you to do it.
Okay, let's see. I don't have any pre-digested text. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we schedule our annual town meeting for June 22nd. I guess that's maybe I don't have a calendar. At 7 p.m. and that the town election will follow on Saturday, June 27th.
Right.
Second.
Motion made by Fraser, seconded by Ryan. Motion been made to postpone annual town meeting to Monday, June 22 at 7 p.m. and the annual town election to the following Saturday, June 27. Further discussion, Mr. Burke.
I just want to let people know that I will be voting against this motion, not because I oppose either continuance of either town event. It's just that I want to be able to move for reconsideration after we've thought through the ramifications of all this. And I'll be the person who does that. Unless the town the town board's chair is going to tell me I don't have to follow that parliamentary rule of procedure.
I think it's probably a good idea to do it. I always thought it was the person on the prevailing side. It's a person on the failing side?
Yeah.
Then why wouldn't everybody move for reconsideration of everything they lose?
Practical matter.
I think the chair is right. You have to be on the prevailing side
So
to
you
move for
want
reconsideration.
if you're going to assume this is going to pass, you want to vote in favor of it.
I'm grateful to the town moderator's guidance. I can double check.
But not me,
Maybe I
you
just got a switch in my head.
The idea of reconsideration is that you were on the Victoria side, but you changed your mind.
Right.
So you wish to reconsider your vote and convince others to do the same.
So, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, I gotta do a roll call. Oh, so I don't do all those in favor. I have to do a roll call vote. Mr. Burke.
After the moderator's guidance, aye.
Ms. Fracia.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, everyone, thank you for helping us get our way through that, in particular David and Linda. That was worthwhile. All right. For some reason, we have waited until the very end to reappoint the Veteran Service Officer, Joe Jacobs. And Selectmen, you do have in your materials his application. I will let the town administrator talk about his service, but my understanding is that he has served very well for the past several years. But you want to say a few words?
I strongly support it. Joe's dedicated to the purpose. He's, as a veteran, on a part-time basis, he's probably provided as much service as you could expect, and then some. I believe most people respect him and like him. I could think of no other person at this point that I'd rather have than Joe.
All right. Discussion from the Selectmen. Mr. Burke.
I would just note that Mr. Jacobs is the only person who applied.
Well, there is that
Position.
There is
That
that.
should be noted. But not to detract from any of the laudable comments that the town administrator made about Mr. Jacobs' service.
It's an occasion to express some appreciation.
Sure.
Do I have Ms. Fracia and Mr. Ryan, any comments before I get a motion?
I was going to offer a motion if you'd like.
I think Ms. Fracia had her hand up politely, so I'm going to call on her.
I'd just like to comment that we are lucky that our only applicant is so well recommended by the town administrator.
You see how she blends those two
I
there?
wish I had said it that way.
You want to be taking notes, Mr. Burke. Thank you, Ms. Fracia. Somebody was going to offer a motion. I think it was Mr. Ryan.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Joe Jacobs as the town's Veteran Services Officer to fill a one-year term expiring March 31st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Joseph Jacobs as the town's Veteran Service Officer to fill a one-year term expiring March 31, 2021. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Burke.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Ms. Fracia.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. He is unanimously reappointed. Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Town Administrator, in light of the postponement of town meeting, you've asked that the discussion of the budget be postponed, I believe?
I have.
All right.
I did provide you with what I would present otherwise, but there are a couple of significant figures, and you alluded to one of them.
Yeah, and
so a few more weeks would benefit my ability to make a late addition to it. And it relates to PFAS. I mean, again, there's no secret there. And we're at a precipitous moment in the process. And the question is, do we wait until we get further orders or anticipate what they might be on the PFAS matter? So I'll be able to provide further details in the weeks ahead. So this is valuable to us and advantageous if we by that time.
Is that all right with my colleagues?
And just in connection with the presentation of the town administrator's budget, I would ask for a lot of detail and rationale for any kind of PFAS expenditures that we would be having to make at such short notice and at such late date.
Well,
they'll be driven by DEP, so that will.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we necessarily need to be driven by DEP.
Well, that will be the basis of it, and we can have the debate of whether we follow their orders or not.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Townley.
Is that all right with my colleagues that he postponed his budget discussion?
Yeah.
Works for me.
Okay. And the parties to the grievance hearing asked that that be postponed. So we are to the ever popular liaison reports. I will start with Mr. Burke. I mean, how much liaising can we be doing in the past few weeks?
It's impossible. FinCom is continuing to meet by Zoom like we are tonight. I've attended their meetings. LACAC is going to have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I
I'm
apologize
so
too.
sorry.
I should have reminded. Look.
Yeah. Thank you.
Safe trip back.
Thank
Finally down.
Not so friendly.
Thank you.
Check with Linda on that.
Good night, Bill.
Could you finish your liaison report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And this Thursday night, we are going to be meeting by Zoom on LACAC in order to discuss contract renegotiation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Tom, Courtney, do you have anything? Either one of you?
I don't really have much other than, I think you said most of the stuff, as far as public safety, keeping things going. And, the police and fire department are still open. It's just that, please don't walk into them and cough all over them and make them sick.
Thank you. Courtney, do you have anything?
I do not. Although Mr. Ryan tends to report on this, the Town Hall Restoration Committee will be meeting later this week by Zoom.
You are correct. Thank you.
I don't have anything. I think my 2 weeks was sort of taken up by this stuff, all of which we discussed tonight. I want to mention two things. So number one, we did not move our next meeting, so it's scheduled for April 14th. There's a little confusion there, so our next meeting is scheduled for April 14th. And I think at our next meeting, if this situation is continuing, now that we've kind of figured this whole Zoom thing out, I'm really going to encourage all the selectmen except probably me to try to attend via Zoom. Although it's been a pleasure being in the same room with you as always, Mr. Burke.
Wearing a surgical mask.
Wearing a surgical mask. You've never looked better, I must say. So I'm just going to, and we had no guests here physically. I was impressed by that. So, it looked like Jonathan managed to figure out how to broadcast Zoom halfway through the meeting, so, or earlier. So it seems like we have figured out how to use this, or other people have, not me. All right. I will take a motion.
Before I would make the motion, but before I do, I want to thank the chair. I mean, I tease the chair a lot, but I thought that over the past week and a half, he's done a remarkable job in getting us ready for conducting the meeting in a crisis mode. I also appreciate the efforts of the town clerk, our administrative assistant, and the town administrator. As I said, I usually tease the chair, but I think he's done a great job this past week.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Burke. I don't think I deserve it. I had a lot of help from IT, Rod L., Jonathan Daisy, who pulled himself out of the sick bed, not coronavirus, but he was sick, Maureen, my wife, Kathy. So it's not all me. It's a team effort, Mr. Burke, as you know. So I appreciate the words.
I think you do deserve it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. On that note, do I have Mr. Ryan, of all people, figured out how to do a thumbs up. Boy,
I was clapping for you too.
Yeah, he's clapping. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
And we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Nice job, Jim.